Welcome back to TechCouture podcast. I'm your host, Kabir Shah, and today's conversation is really exciting because we're talking all about wearables. In a market that's dominated by smartwatches like the Apple Watch, Samsung, Garmin, and a whole lot more, as well as wearable tech like the Oura Ring and the Whoop, today's guest is building the world's first invisible wearable tech. Meet Ganance. Jason Reinhardt, co-founder of Ganace, joins us to talk all about the experience of building and shipping out their first 1,000 units, the critical feedback that they received, and what they're looking forward to heading into 2026. What started as a chance encounter almost 2 years ago has now turned into his life's work. Jason always struggled with deciding whether to wear his Apple Watch for functionality or his Omega Speedmaster for style. With Ganance, he never has to worry again. See, Ganance's superpower is that they bring the power and functionality of an Apple Watch, a Samsung, all of these smartwatches on the market directly to your watch. And the product is quite simple. It's a small sensor that goes on the case back of your watch. You attach it, sync it up to your phone, and go. From notifications to activity tracking to a whole lot more that's going to come out in 2026. I see Ganance as a really interesting entrant into this market that isn't doing what everyone else is doing. They're truly differentiating their product, and they know their market well. Whether you're interested in tech, smartwatches, or fashion, this episode's for you. With that, let's get started. Welcome in, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on to the TechCouture podcast. Thank you so much for finding some time here, and let's get into it.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So for our listeners here, Ganance is a new wearable technology that doesn't compromise style and data. And so it's different from all the other products out there on the market, but I'll let Jason go into what Ganance is, why they're building it. So Jason, if you can just start off by talking a little bit about yourself, what Ganance is building and really why now.
Totally. So Jason Reinhardt, I'm co-founder of Ganance, where we are developing the world's only invisible wearable tech device. So for those watching, you can check my live demo here, or if you're listening, I'll try and give you some subtext. So you can see the Air is our first product, which is, again, a wearable device that sticks to the back of any watch caseback, instantly enhancing it with smartwatch capabilities. So tracks your activity, vibrates when you get calls or text, control your media, all from any watch. So again, the idea is you keep your style and you sort of add our function in the background. So the original story of Ganance actually predates me a few years ago, where our original founder, Alex Ocampo, who was first generation immigrant here in America and went on to be the first person in his family to go to college and to get a big job at IBM and end up in big city of New York. His big brother bought him a beautiful Citizens Echo watch to sort of celebrate and commence the moment, if you will. So fast forward a couple years, I think it was probably around 2013, 2014, when the explosion of wearable devices really came out, where Alex ultimately sort of found himself wearing his Garmin more than he found himself wearing the Citizens Echo that his brother bought him. So, he fell in love with the data, fell in love with the step tracking and the step competitions that were taking place at IBM. So fast forward a couple years from there, his brother, who again bought him that watch, had a bit of a health scare, ended up being okay, fortunately, but it sort of gave Alex a chance to be like, wow, I missed my watch and I stopped wearing that for the data that the Garmin provides. What if I could do both? And from there, the Air was born, ultimately to sort of solve that compromise that so many people are facing right now. So fast forward a couple years from there is when I come into the picture. This was early 2024, I think, where a coworker of mine used to work with Alex back at IBM, and my coworker sort of dragged me to this event at the Breitling boutique up in Meatpacking here in New York, and was telling me about this quirky idea about this wearable device that turns any watch into a smartwatch. So I think I was a little hungover that afternoon, so I was reluctant to go, but ultimately I did end up went to the event, right? And instantly when I met Alex and when I tried on the Air for the first time, it was just one of those light bulb moments where it was one of those life-changing things where I was like, this this device is going to be it. So instantly I was like, Alex, I don't give a shit what you say. I am joining you and I'm joining your company and we're going to make this thing happen. So ever since that day, I've been working nights and weekends, working with Alex and, trying to build this company.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you when you talk about kind of being in that state when you weren't really sure if you wanted to go, and I often find that sometimes the best decisions end up happening when it's the least expected. And truly, when I started the conversation with you that evening, and you showed me what you were building, I had a similar type of light bulb moment of wow, this is such a simple looking idea. Why hasn't ever anyone ever thought of this? Where finally I get to wear my watches without having to compromise with the data, the fitness tracking, all of those things that go into smartwatches. So truly believe that this is a product that has a potential for something really great.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit more context into where we are as an organization, like I said, Alex sort of kicked off R&D probably about 4 years ago on the original prototype. Then, like I said, I met him about 2 years ago. So that's when I started getting involved. We just shipped out our first major production batch of about 1,000 units this past summer. And now we're gearing up for our next major production batch of spring of 2026.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to get into some of the go to market aspects of it as well. But kind of coming back to that original meeting with Alex, what really prompted you to say, you know what, I have this full time job, but I see this vision that you have, and I'm going to take on this new opportunity, this new risk, and come on and build this with you. What was that from your lens that really clicked?
Yeah. So a little bit about me is my dad has been an entrepreneur his entire professional life. So as a young kid, I was always raised to sort of see what that looked like. One of my favorite quotes that my dad always mentioned, which may or may not be worth bringing up, but he always says, every day is Saturday. And what that means for me is, you have an opportunity to do something amazing and to do something different from a business perspective every day, whether it's, Saturday, December 6th, or whether it's December 25th, Christmas, whether it's Monday morning, whatever the case, you always have the same 24 hours in a day to do something that you want to do to grow your business and to grow that opportunity. So again, I think I've always had that sort of entrepreneurial itch. Um, and sort of however that manifests itself was sort of to be determined. So again, when I met him and tried on the product that first time, it was really a light bulb type of experience. So with that said, to your point, I still have my full-time job. So every day for me is every day is a little bit hectic for me, right? So I still have my full-time technology consulting job here in New York, where I am pretty much working every day between 8 to 6. And then after that, I work on this, basically between 6 to 10 every night. So with that, my personal life has definitely taken some sacrifices over the past 2 years. But ultimately, again, I know that this is sort of the future that I want to build for myself as I am. And we could talk more about this, but ultimately, I am this target persona of Air
Mm.
wearers. And I am so passionate about solving this problem for not just myself, but obviously also the millions of consumers that I believe also face this problem every day.
Yeah. Kind of last point here on the personal side, but talk about this experience, and you've been working on this for a little over a year now, close to 2 years, I think you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like going from servicing others, building technology for others, consulting for other clients, to now kind of stepping in, and while you're still doing the other job obviously, but now taking on this extra level of risk, one, but also just responsibility in something that you're pouring all of your energy and will into.
Yeah, a couple things. So I've been in corporate America for either like 8 or 10 years now. Like you said, building technology primarily on the software side, technology enablement type of work. So frankly, not related to hardware or direct to consumer or consumer technology in any way. So really, the thing that has been most stark in terms of the contrast between corporate work and startup work is Frankly, with this startup, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. Right. So what that does is forces a additional layer of self accountability and even more so learning opportunities. Right. So if you told me the work that I'm working on right now in December of 2025, if you told me that a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, definitely, I'd be like, you're crazy. Like, I know nothing about that industry, that, you know, I know nothing about that type of work that I'm currently working on. And it's, again, it goes back to that idea that, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And we're constantly facing new initiatives, new strategy, new opportunities, new revenue streams, et cetera, where if I don't learn how to do it, the business is going to suffer from that. So that's been the number one biggest thing for me that I'm so grateful for, is just the opportunity to learn new things and actually be able to sort of exhibit those and push those forward, for our business.
Yeah, and especially for this type of business, I think it's especially crucial because you already have such strong incumbents. You have Whoop, you have obviously Aura, you have Google has their own watch, Garmin has their own watch, Samsung as well. So it's definitely a market that there are a lot of competitors out there, and obviously they lean heavily into truly the smart watch or smart wearable. In the case of Whoop and Aura, like you said, if you don't work on it, it's not getting done. So now, kind of switching over to Ganance and then the broader market that you're building for. First, talk about why has no one ever tried to solve this before? This integration between style and data. Our watches, they represent a level of craftsmanship, of artisanship, and these smartwatches, while great in terms of their own style, in terms of their own functionality, to me personally, they don't achieve the same type of, I guess, satisfaction as I would have from wearing my own watch.
Yeah. So it's one of the more common, not pushbacks, but sort of counter arguments for the success of our company, right? Like, you're going to be going against some of the biggest competitors with the deepest wallets and the deepest R&D teams, which is absolutely true, right? It's like, are we the first and only wearable technology company? No. I've been a customer of basically all of the different competitors that we can think of. And again, they do an amazing job of curating the data, analyzing the data, showcasing the data in a great format. Like, they do an amazing job of what they're offering. The issue is, at least I face this issue, and again, I believe there's a very wide market of people that are also facing this issue, is I don't want to wear any of those products, right? I think that the explosion of the wearable space has taken away from the personalization, the personal style, the individuality of the consumer market. And that's really the value prop that we want to highlight, and what we want to showcase for our customers. That, again, every day before I met Alex and before at Ganance, I struggled every single day with, do I wear my Apple Watch for my style or for my function and data, or do I wear my Speedmaster because I love it and I feel good? Now we are removing that barrier, and that value prop, I believe, is going to be the primary differentiator between us and those other competitors that, they're trying their best to sort of appease to the style. I mean, obviously I'm staying up to date with all the different new product offerings. Like, Whoop is offering maybe 6 or 7 different alternative bands that are meant to sort of appease to the style objections that a lot of people have. Aura is obviously coming out with different metals and different styles. But again, ultimately, I can never get into the double wrist look. I can never get into the ring look personally. So invisible is really that value prop that we want to own as an organization.
Yeah, and it's honestly remarkable how easy it is to put on the Air, right? You just stick it on to the bottom of your watch, and then you sync it up with your phone and the app, and it immediately begins tracking it. Anything from obviously steps, calories, to being able to have haptic vibrations synced into it as well, along with, and this was unique. I didn't know about this before, but being able to actually control audio and like different cues directly from the face of your watch.
That's right. That's right. So those are our main value props that we've been focusing on to date. So like you said, activity tracking, partner with our mobile app. All of our data flows into there and then integrates with Apple or Google Health. You also receive haptic vibrations for key notifications, like you said. And then lastly, media control. So pause or play your song by just tapping your watch face once or twice. And same thing with rejecting or silencing a phone call as well. So that's what our main value props have been focused on to date, where when we were originally conceiving the first V1 and coming up with the key requirements of what our customers are looking for, those were the primary answers: activity tracking and staying connected with key notifications, right? So that's been our main value props today. With that said, we're coming out with new software enhancements and new software features basically every week. So coming up next is customized notifications. So, if your partner calls you and you want to get that notification, you can specify that. If your next door neighbor does and you don't want to hear that, you can, customize accordingly. So customized vibrations, customized vibration feedback. So again, your neighbor calls you and you get two taps, and then a third later. And then also silence modes as well. So focus and priority mode. So like I said, we're coming out with new features basically every week as fast as we can churn them around to help improve and enhance the current offering that we have.
Let's talk really briefly about the haptic vibrations and then the notifications. Because I think for our listeners, our viewers as well, it's really easy to visualize. You have an Apple Watch, you're able to visually see the notification come up, but how does that work with our watches, our normal everyday watches? Like, could you kind of describe what is that like from your own user perspective?
Yeah. So for me, this is my personal favorite feature of the Air. And when I was first introduced to it, I was like, that is rad. So we're really leaning into this whole trend of tech minimalist, where we're essentially giving our users the bare minimum of what they need without giving them an overload of notifications, right? So minus the screen, minus the endless vibrations that many of these smartwatches give you. We are giving you the bare minimum of what you need to sort of stay connected, feel in the know, while again still feeling all of the different attributes that you love about your personal style. So, in terms of what it actually feels like, again, there's just a miniature motor in the device that'll vibrate. So, again, you're going to be able to customize your notifications according to contacts, according to apps. Where again, it gives you a little subtle vibration, a little subtle cue on your wrist without, again, any popping up screens, without any noises, without an overload of distractions.
What I find really unique is you can actually, take off the air. Like, it's just microsuction technology, so you can take it off, you can put it onto another watch, and the same functionality transfers over. So I think that's really also the differentiator that you have as opposed to a wearable that's out on the market right now, where you have a singular hardware, and that's the only option you have. Maybe you can buy other bands, but ultimately they're different piece of hardware. While in this, you have a singular suction cap that goes on the bottom of your watch, and then you can transfer from watch to watch for those people who are watch fanatics and have multiple.
You got it. So the space that we ultimately want to own one day is the invisible and modular wearable space, right? So we believe that those are the two main value props that are sort of white spaces in the market today. So, again, watches are really just sort of the beginning of where we want to take this product. That's because really it's a familiar form factor for where people are used to being able to track their data and get notifications, but ultimately it's just the beginning. So think about the modularity aspect of this, where we can get this to different jewelry pieces. We can get this to different applications, such as a golf glove or a ski glove, or wherever again your imagination takes you, bras, underwears, whatever the case might be. So right now we're prototyping with a different concept. So again, for the listeners, I'm taking the air off my watch and I'm pulling up what we're calling the Air Band, which is essentially a workout or sleep strap, where essentially you can put the air into this little hoister, and just like that, the air is able to be leveraged for, again, maybe when you don't want to work out in your watch, or when you don't want to sleep in your watch, which I personally don't either. So Again, the different modular use cases of this product are basically infinite. Um, all to say right now, we're focusing on our MVS and our product that we're delivering, but all of these different use cases and different features and different modularities are what keep me up at night as exciting future opportunities.
But obviously, there's a large market out there of existing incumbents. People have, certain preferences about what smartwatch they're using. So maybe talk a little bit about from a go-to-market strategy and that perspective. What has been some of the early feedback you've gotten, and what are some of the challenges that you've encountered, whether it comes to how do you understand the pricing model you want to put behind this? I think there are a couple variables in the market right now in terms of how certain incumbents are using their own pricing models, or what do you tell people when they're like, well, you don't have the metrics that another smart wearable watch provides?
Yeah, I'll address those first two, those 2 points first. So number one is we initially went live with a subscription model, an annual subscription of $100 per year for the Air, which included all software and hardware upgrades as they came out. And when I say subscription fatigue is real, I mean it. It was the number one biggest barrier to entry for purchases, and the number one biggest complaint that we heard consistently was the subscription model and the pricing structure. So when we did announce the change from the $100 annual subscription to a now $200 flat one-time fee, it was the number one biggest sales day that we've had to date. Again, when I say people are over subscriptions, I mean it, and that is the number one again accelerator for our sales growth since that point. So that was a learning experience, which speaks to sort of the open communication that we have with our customers and our community, which I definitely want to talk more about as we go. So that was the first one. And the second is sort of that obstacle or the comparison, if you will, of our competitive products. So what I say is I'm not so quick to say that everyone is eager for those advanced biometrics. Um, and again, it goes back to the communication that we heavily rely on for with our customers is not everyone really wants or cares to know their advanced biometrics. So that's why we're trying to sort of understand what people want. One of our main and core principles as an organization, especially when it comes to product roadmap and product development, is human-centered design. So even just this past week, we sent out a newsletter basically asking our community, hey, if the Air had heart rate, HRV, body temperature, sleep metrics, etc., would you buy it today? Right. So we're anxiously waiting to go through those results. We're anxiously waiting to have more conversations. But all to say, a lot of people really only want what we have to offer today. So activity tracking and notifications primarily being the main ones. So are those more advanced biometrics in our product roadmap? Absolutely. We do believe, as sort of a blanketed statement, the more advanced features that we get, the more we're going to be able to go into the market and again add utility to our customers and on our users. So that is certainly in our product roadmap to get there. It's just a matter of time and money, if you will.
Yeah, and I totally agree on the subscription fatigue. Um, and to your latter point there, I do agree. I think there's an information overload that we oftentimes encounter. Whether it's on our phone or just any sort of piece of application or functionality that we're using. Sometimes it feels like, wow, there's just so much that I'm having to look through. I don't even know how to make sense of everything I'm looking at. And so, I think to what you said, it is important to have this sort of built-in optionality for biometrics and building that out as you kind of go in the future, depending on, as whether your customer base wants it. But I think where the key unlock is, can you allow the user to choose what they want to see? Similar to what you were already talking about with the human-centered design of the product right now, where they can determine what notifications do they get, who do they actually want to hear from when they're wearing their watch. I think that's a key differentiator there. Like, you want to be able to say, yes, we have all of these options, but you get to choose which options you actually want.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. And we were actually just having an internal strategy session about how we want our product to be leveraged and to be viewed as from our customers. And ultimately, our job is to be an accountability partner and an assistant in whatever manner our users want it to be. We are not the dictator. We are not the ultimate boss or the rule maker. We are going to be our coach and assistant in whatever spectrum our users want. So, going back to sort of the go to market and sort of our target customers with the current feature stack, what I like to say is we're currently targeting what we refer to as corporate athletes, right? So, not the extreme 10% of watch wearers, not the extreme 10% of athletes, because those extreme 10% are, love them both. They're going to be a tough nut to crack, right? They're very much in their lane and they're not going to be deterred, right? We're really going after that middle 80% of not watch lovers, but people that wear watches, if that makes sense. People that care about their style, people that stay active, people that care about their data and staying connected, but are ultimately sort of open to different alternatives and different solutions. So, talking about like my original story within the product and the company and where I sort of see myself playing a main role is what I like to say is my value proposition to Ganance as a co-founder is not my previous professional experience. It's not my work history. It's not XYZ. It is that I am this target customer to a T. I am the voice of the customer. And I try and I hope that all of my deliverables and all of my output and all of my customer interactions, put that on display.
Talk a little bit about how you're getting in front of these customers, right? I think right now that's sort of the challenge that a lot of brands go through is, are you going to spend money on ads? Well, ads are really expensive. They're continuing to increase in spend. Cracking social media is a challenge of its own, but once you're able to build that sort of organic connection with whoever your target community is, let's call it, they'll stick with you. So I think there's definitely a powerful lens that organic social, for example, can provide. But from your perspective, what's the marketing side of this been like? Getting Ganance into the obviously the watches of your target consumers, but really the mind share of your target consumer as well.
All right. So talking about how we get in front of customers. So we have invested a lot of time and energy and money over the past probably about 2 years of attending trade shows. So those have primarily been watch and technology events where one of the beauties of this product, but also one of the curses, is that it touches so many different avenues. It touches athletics, it touches style, it touches technology, it touches basically everyone in between, right? So that's sort of a blessing and a curse from a marketing and customer demographic perspective. So, like I said, we've done a number of trade shows in the watch and technology space where it's ultimately just asking questions, right? It's like, do you really care about your HRV? Do you work out on your watch? What features do you value the most? Is this comfortable to wear? Which I can definitely speak to from this first batch that we just shipped out. So there is that side of it. The other is the paid side. So I think there's such a coolness aspect to this product that it ultimately sort of sells itself once you have the foundation out there, right? So my job as head of growth, which is sort of a catch-all for sales, marketing, brand, etc., is really just to expose the problem that, like I said, I think millions of consumers face every day of having to choose between X and Y, right? So it's about highlighting that problem and then just simply getting our name out there. So, your point about organic social, and then, earlier talking about things that I don't have much experience or comfortability in, is organic social is our number one biggest opportunity for 2026. We have under indexed our priorities of organic social. That, like I said, it is our number one. It's my number one biggest opportunity to sort of bust out of that shell, and again, really just tell the story of what we're building, who we're building it for, what the Air does, what we're trying to do, and like I said, I think the our story between Alex and his family, between me and sort of having this dual job here in New York, and again the product itself having so many different story variabilities between the story between you and your watch. I'm sure there's a great story there, showcasing these types of storylines and problem solutions. It's our number one biggest opportunity in 2026.
You need a great promo video. Apparently, all the new startups that come out, they have amazing promo videos.
There you go. We need one.
Let's shift to talking about this current batch that you just shipped out and what that user feedback has been. You're really close to, you know, you touch sales, you touch marketing, but if you go on Ganance's Instagram, you'll also see Jason is responding to Instagram comments directly from users. So you're really close to the customer feedback space. Talk about what that sort of feedback led to in this past drop that came out. And then as you're taking pre-orders right now for the spring batch, what you're looking towards incorporating and just sort of the future of what the next version of the Air is going to be.
Yeah. So talking about summer 2025 shipment, what I like to say is starting a business, going live in any spectrum is difficult. Any business, any startup, their first month is going to be tough. You're going to have issues. What I also like to say is consumer electronics and hardware is another beast, right? It doesn't matter how much you test, doesn't matter how much you triple test, doesn't matter how much you sanity check. Hardware will keep you on your toes, right? So all to say, we shipped out 1,000 units and we faced some issues, as again, I think any consumer electronics will. The good news is all of the sort of issues that we have faced are all fixable and they're all software. The hardware itself has stood tall and has stood strong in this first major learning experience. So all to say, like you said, I'm on the front line. Every dash Jason comment that you see, that's me. So I'm interacting with customers on an absolutely daily basis. So, one thing I wanted to touch on was for every issue that we faced, every concern, every question, every enhancement request that we faced, we also received an equal amount of messages of support and enthusiasm and appreciation for what we're solving. And, I can't say enough how much those messages have helped fuel us as a startup, where again, the first month is going to be very difficult to be able to handle this incoming stream of problems and troubleshooting and, upset customers. Those messages of support and the enthusiasm and patience have fueled us to keep going and to keep forward of what we're doing. So that's this past shipment that we just had. And then also, like you said, we're gearing up for our spring of 2026. So as I alluded to earlier, we are pushing out software feature enhancements as fast as we possibly can, including quiet mode, including custom notifications, including selective notifications. And we have a plethora of additional enhancements coming down the line. Home screen widgets also comes to mind off the top of my head. So ultimately, we're going to squeeze this current hardware stack for as much juice as we possibly can. So all of those features will be included in this most recent shipment, as well as the upcoming spring one. And, and then we'll ultimately, we're in the midst of planning what our V2, our second generation Air device includes. So, again, think about those more advanced biometric sensors, think about the sleep metrics, think about all of the status quo that comes to mind when you think of a modern day wearable. We are on that mission to ultimately get there. Like I said, though, it's just a matter of sort of time and in development resources.
Kind of going into this second year of getting this product into real customers' hands, what is that vision that you have for 2026 for this company, for this product? What is it that, if you could tell a potential customer right now listening, that you would want them to know about the Air, about where you're headed, and really why they should be trusting Ganance and the Air for their watch needs?
Yeah. When you wear the Air, you ultimately get your self expression back. You get to tell the stories of what made this watch special, what milestone you accomplished, what major objective what major obstacle you overcame. And you also get all of the features and functions that you can possibly want from all of the other alternative solutions. So, ultimately it's about not having to choose. It's ultimately about feeling your best when you wear the Air. Ultimately, as a company, we are headed towards enabling self-expression, enabling your personal style, and again, bringing back what makes people feel their best, which is again their expression and their style.
I think that's a great mission, and I can't wait to get my hands on the newer versions of Ganance. And for all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into the TechCouture podcast. This is Jason Reinhardt, co-founder of Ganance. Really excited, Jason, for you to come on, for sharing your story, for sharing Alex's story, and for sharing Ganance. Thank you so much.